Everyone. I am Dr. Jerry Punch, longtime ESPN and ABC motorsports commentator, and it is a pleasure to be on today. It is an absolute pleasure to talk to one of the rising stars in late model racing, and that is Taylor Hoar out of South Hero, Vermont. Taylor is just one of 5 finalists in the 2025 Kawicki Driver Development Program. Taylor, congratulations on being one of the 5 finalists and the first female since 2022.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I'm really excited.
It's before we get into you, I don't want to be selfish, but this has been Father's Day weekend, so I want to talk to you a little bit about and ask you a question about your dad. Your father Brian was an 8-time champion. He's a legend in the American Canadian Tour from all his success. So, what's the best piece of advice on or off the track that your dad gave you over the years? It doesn't have to involve racing. It could be involving how to set up a pass or how to fend off a pass from some annoying young man, but it could be anything. But best piece of advice from your dad.
Oh my gosh, he spews off so much great advice every time we're at the track or off the track. So that's hard to pick one. He's really good with making sure I'm confident and knowing that I'm there to play. So I think one of the ones that I always look at is, when we're talking about the fast guys at the track, and he kind of always reminds me, he's like, you are the fast guy, and I want you to know that and keep that in your head. You don't move over for these other fast guys because you are a fast guy, whether you believe it or not. And I think that's just something that I like to kind of remind myself of, like, I'm there to play too. And there are these fast guys, but I'm right there with them. And I really appreciate when he tries to make sure I know that I'm there to play and keeps my confidence right up.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I like that. I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked people like Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Dale Jarrett and Kyle Petty, is that when you have a father who is a legend and so well known, is having a dad like that a blessing or a burden?
Absolute blessing. I mean, his knowledge is just, it's crazy what there's so many times that we're at the track and he'll be like, okay, well, you got to try this, you got to do this better, or just something. He just is always has the answer for my questions, or he'll see something I did that I didn't notice I did wrong. And he, gently tells me about it. And it's a blessing. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to it, but, I don't really let it get to me. I try to make my own name for myself and do what I need to do to go win a race or do better and learn. So it's definitely a blessing in my position.
Yeah, I love the emotion and how you handle these questions. Emotion is a major part of anything in life, in sports, and how you control the emotion, how you use the emotion to motivate you to the finish line. What would you say so far, not just this year, but so far has been your most gratifying or satisfying moment in this sport?
Um, A lot of great moments, but probably just one of my first and only win at Thunder Road. It was in a four-cylinder street stock, but it was something we worked for a few years and had a few close finishes, but finally got that win. And always cool to add to the history books of a small list of female winners at Thunder Road. But also, I won at a track my dad's won at multiple times, and just having his support there and getting to see his reaction. And I think there was a few tears in victory lane from him, and not always something we see from him. So it always means a lot to think back to that moment and kind of keeps me dreaming for the day I'll find a win in a late model.
Yeah, but it is Thunder Road. Everybody knows what Thunder Road is. When you say Thunder Road, people in racing know, holy cow, she won at Thunder Road. Yeah.
Yes.
Where I grew up, it was Hickory Speedway,
Yeah.
or Daytona or whatever. So those names resonate with people who are fans. Last year, you were a semifinalist in this program, the Kawicki Driver Development Program. This year, you are a finalist and well deserved. Where do you think you've grown or improved over the last year?
I mean, I feel like I've tried to grow in every aspect that I can. It pushed me really hard to work hard to get to become a finalist. I was a semifinalist and I only had raced 4 late model races last or the year before. So I felt like I had a lot to learn, but I felt like I was in a good place to come back and retry to become a finalist this year. I work really hard on social media. As we know, that's a big part of today's racing. Social media can get you far in the sport, and I think that's something I work really, really hard on. And I'm the main person doing my social media. I have, my friends taking pictures of me at the track, but I'm making the social posts. So I really worked hard on that to try and continue to grow that, but also just learning, taking in everything I can, writing notes at the track, doing my driver sheets, talking with my dad, watching race footage, watching races from the past if I'm going to a new track. Just so many things to try and prepare just to be better in all aspects as a driver and just a person.
It's interesting. People who may not know don't realize this program, the Kawiki Driver Development Program, isn't just about what happens on the racetrack. There are different categories, that involve work ethic, social media, as you mentioned, race car setup. Do you know what a shock and spring looks like and how they work? A lot of people don't. Tim Richmond didn't know. Charity work. There's so many aspects. So you talked about how hard you've worked, and it shows on your social media. Where do you think you've made the biggest improvement in those areas here in the first segment this year?
Yeah, I mean, social media, it's been nice to see a steady, gradual growth. Again, because it's really gratifying when I know I'm working hard and seeing the results are paying off. I'm also really trying to learn a lot about setup. I've only been in a late model for a year and now on to my second year. And so it's very different than my four-cylinder stock body Mustang. So it's a lot. And when my crew chief comes to the shop, I try and be like, okay, come on, let's learn. And he gives me little lessons. We've got our phones as cars, and or he's setting up a little table to talk about wedge and cross and all these things, just things that I haven't learned before. And he's trying to teach me every aspect. And I'm really trying to learn a lot about these cars because it's going to help me as a driver no matter what. And anything I can do hands on. I love, I got to go to the track this weekend and be hands on 2 different days this week. And I love it. I love being able to be hands on because I just learned so much. So just working on that. And I feel like this program is really helping push me to want to know everything that's happening with my car because it makes me want to be the best version of myself, again, just as myself, but also as a driver.
Well, let's talk about you as a driver. How would you evaluate your season so far?
It's not been what we hoped for. I mean, that's just the brutal truth to it, but that's also racing. It's serve you a large slice of humble pie when you're not looking for it. So it's just the reality of it. We didn't have the first 3 races weren't the best, and we just had some unlucky starts, and they were long distance races that we just kind of had to hold on for it. We lost our hood twice, and just silly mistakes that happened on my part, and on track things, but working hard to move past those, and we learned from them, and I learned from them watching race footage, and um, just trying to move forward. We got a fourth at Thunder Road, and we got a heat win, and those all go towards points, and that felt like a win just to get a fourth, which doesn't seem like much to some, but at Thunder Road 15 guys could go win on any given night. We've got 25 cars in the field just for a 50 lapper. So to go run well at Thunder Road, it's hard. And so to get those good finishes are really rewarding because we needed it after those first 3 races.
Okay, the first 3 races, things didn't go well. You had some bad luck and you wanted, but then race 4, as you mentioned, you won the heat race, you had a top 5 finish. What changed? What happened?
I think we just kind of had to forget about what happened. I mean, it's so easy to be so hard on yourself in this sport, and it's so mentally demanding. And it was so easy for me to be mad at myself and why didn't I do better, and why am I still doing this, and there's no reason for me to just give up that easy, and I have to remind myself of that. But also when I have that mentality, I'm bringing my team down with me, and so I want to bring my team up. I have such an amazing team behind me, and I just want to keep uplifting them because if I'm not having a good time or I'm sad or something, then that brings them down. So trying to bring the morals of the team up, and everybody's so positive around me that I have to just keep myself going and say, forget about it, move on, learn from it. That's the biggest thing you can do is just learn from your mistakes and move on, and try and just forget about them. You can't live in the past. It's not going to help, and just learn and move on.
Well, and that's a good way to look at it because you're competing with 4 other people for this Kawiki Driver Development Championship. And at the end of each segment, everyone gets together and vote. The people involved on the board vote, and they vote in every category. And you've had some poor luck on the racetrack, and so right now I think you are 5th in the point standings, but you're very, very close. See, the separation is not very much. And I'll remind you that Alan Kawicki, in September of 1992, had terrible luck at Dover, Delaware, was over 200 points behind in a championship. And yet, when it came to Atlanta in 1992, he was one of 6 drivers that could have won it, and he won it. So coming from behind is what this program is about. How do you you know, Alan was known for perseverance and overcoming the odds. You know, tell me about your strengths as far as a person and where you are right now. You're fifth in the points. So what's the
It's gonna honestly, I think it's good for me to be in fifth because it's gonna give me the motivation to really keep working harder than I am right now and learning more and doing more and trying to put together a few more things. But just I feel like I'm really good at managing our team and getting things together for myself and our team. And so really want to try to get our program, as tight knit as it can be and make sure we're as prepared as we should be for at the track. Like I said, we lost our hood twice this year, and that's, not really a fun thing to go deal with. That it was like lap 6 and lap 8 on two different occasions, just from checkups. And so, now we've got them reinforced and just things like that to make sure we can finish these races, and just, making sure we get to the finish line. So trying to make sure that we're as prepared as we can be, but also pushing myself, to go do some more things on and off the track, and just having a good mentality, and still working on my social medias and still learning more about the setups and what we're doing on the cars and just everything. And also, we haven't really gotten enough time to do everything I've wanted to do with the charity work quite yet, but we've got a lot of things planned. So I think it's going to be really good for us. We've got a few things planned, and I'm really excited to get those going. But this also gives me more motivation to keep adding more things to our schedule for charity work.
That's great because yeah, I read about the reading program you did. Tell us about that. That was a huge success.
This is my fourth year as a Race to Read driver at Thunder Road. So it's a nonprofit literacy program at Thunder Road, and just kind of encourages kids to read. And it's really a fun way, kind of use race cars as a great incentive. I mean, I'd be more excited to read if I was a young kid at a racetrack. So, and they can win incentives like, get a free creamy, or come on the track for driver introductions. And at the historic Milk Bowl, they can, walk with a driver during driver intros and walk all the way around the track. So it's really exciting to try and motivate these kids to read and get their reading logs in. But you can also go get your books from their booth at the track. So we did a book drive for the car show at opening day at Thunder Road, and we had huge success. I made one lap around the track, and there was like 3 or 4 books that I think I put in the bin. And then by the time the end of the day, we had multiple bins full to the top, and it was just so cool to see that really be successful. I was nervous that it wouldn't be successful, but I'm happy to say that it was. And now all these kids have more and more books to read, and because some people don't even have access to those books. So I'm really excited to know that we're helping them get access to whatever books they want to be reading.
Well, I think being able to walk out with a driver during driver intros, that would make me want to read a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask you about a couple of things. 2025, this program introduced a mentorship program where you're hooked up with a Kowickiite. Your guy's Joe Covington. How much interaction have you had with Joe?
Yeah, we've talked a few times, and we text every once in a while and just check in with each other. But it's been fun to get to know him. He's a girl dad, so we kind of connect in that way of he knows how to talk to us girls. And he's been such a delight to talk to, and he really is so sweet and so supportive, and says things like they are, which I really appreciate. I want honesty in my life, and he's not afraid to be honest about certain things. And I like to hear the little bit of inside scoops about Alan, and I'm really excited to continue getting to talk to him about my racing, but also Alan's racing, and just, connecting with him. And I think he's going to try and come up to Thunder Road at one point this season. So it'll be exciting to meet him in person after all this interaction online.
Well, he certainly knew Alan very, very well, as all those guys did. And Alan Quickie was not an easy guy to work with or work for. Ray Evernham lasted 2 weeks there. I was with Ray said he was just a hard guy to work with. He was hard headed because he was demanding. And Alan would always say, "We're never going to achieve perfection, but it doesn't mean we can't stop trying." That's one of the reasons. Why do you think? Let me just test a little bit of your Alan Quickie knowledge. Why do you think Alan was so successful so quickly?
I mean, I think that his hard work and determination, I mean, he didn't want to accept anything less. I think one of his quotes, and I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to try and butcher it, but it was about being perfect, and you're not going to be perfect. So try your best to, you just do your best, really. And so, I think that says a lot because no one's going to be perfect. And I think he knows that it's unachievable to be perfect, but to work as hard as you can and do your best every time you're, in the shop or at the track, or constantly thinking at home, as all of us racers do. Just putting everything you have towards your success, I think, is what helped him be successful. He didn't go half on anything. He went full force on everything. And so I think that that's, what got him there was his determination and motivation.
Absolutely great answer. When Alan had that terrible finish at Dover, and was over 200 points behind, he told me that one of his favorite quotes was from a famous coach in Wisconsin, a guy by the name of Vince Lombardi. And Alan said, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goals. Uh, and he had his goal was to win the Cup Series title, and he did. He didn't take his eyes off his goals. So with that said, what are your goals? What are your immediate goals? And what are your long-term goals?
Yeah, I mean, this year we're trying to look at the points and see where we can land up. Like I said, 15 guys or even 20 guys could go win the championship, go win races weekly at Thunder Road. So it's a hard feat to go even be in the top 10 right now. And so just working towards to see what we can do with that. But I'd also love to get my first late model win. Thunder Road, like we kind of mentioned, is a really historic track, and there's only been one female finisher there, Tracy Belrose. And I'd really love to add my name to that little bit of history book, but also not just, the female history book, but also just being a winner at Thunder Road is a history book itself. And so I want to go do that and just get as many clean races as we can. Anytime I'm on the track, that I just want to be there, get some seat time and learn as much as we can. Points chasing can be pretty stressful, but we try and have fun with it and, not beat ourselves up too hard. I mean, Thunder Road is hard. It's just plain and simple, so hard. So we're there to do our best and just keep learning and add to our notebooks.
Couple quick questions, and I'll let you go. Tracy Belrose is one of your mentors. He's obviously had the success you mentioned. I saw where you said she told you to go out there and just be one of the guys. So my question to you is this: how can an attractive 22-year-old girl who's out running most of these guys get out of the car and still be one of the guys? Aren't they a little frustrated?
I mean, maybe, but I just kind of keep to myself and keep to my pit stall. And, I talk to some of the veteran guys that, I think we have a lot of mutual respect. And, I think a lot of people too have, respect for my dad, but also I've tried to build that respect for myself all last year. I'm not trying to ruffle feathers. If it wasn't my day, just, hold my lane and make sure that I'm not the problem car. And so building that respect, I think helps. I don't feel like I'm mistreated on the track, and I've been very fortunate because I do know there are female that are mistreated on the racetrack, but I'm just trying to be there to build respect. And honestly, I think the second that helmet goes on, the cars don't know whether I'm female or male, so the drivers shouldn't have that impact how they drive me. But I just try and have fun. We have a really fun crew, and we're just there to have fun, smile, we're laughing, making jokes and everything. And so people have a problem with that, it's not my problem.
If you're not going to have fun, why are you doing it, huh? So, I love your approach. I love your humility and the fact that you're willing to ask and seek input and advice because you realize you're still learning. Your learning curve is very steep, and yeah, you're fifth in points after segment one, but you still got the good news is you still got two more segments to go, and you're going to get a chance to be able to get more advice and input from your dad, who's a legend, from Tracy. And let me ask you this as a final question: if you could ask Alan Kowicki one question or ask him for a piece of advice, and he came walking down pit road at Thunder Road, what would you ask him?
Oh golly, that is hard to just pick one. Um, honestly, I think just after those first three races of having a really hard time mentally, I think I'd want to just ask him of, after those hard days at the track, what do you do when you go home and you're just sitting in your thoughts? What brings you back? What really, obviously we all want to come back because we all have that fire in us, but what makes you say like really move on? Because yeah, I've moved on, but it's still in the back of my mind. It wasn't fun, but what really helps you push through and have a really clean mentality because you have to be so focused in this sport. And like I said, it's so mentally challenging. So I think that's a big thing that I really have to work on. And I would love to just hear what he, did to really, have a focused mentality even after those hard races.
Well, I think that would be something great to ask him. And I know he would have a great answer because he was so complex. And that's why this program is the way it is, because they want you not only to become a really good driver on the track, they want you to be able to excel in your charity work, in your social media work, in your setup work. And most importantly, what Alan, I think what he excelled in was work ethic. You weren't going to outwork that guy. So I think he would give you a good answer. Hey, Taylor, thank you for taking the time today on a Father's Day weekend. I know you've had a big weekend. Monday, I know that hopefully your dad had a great day yesterday, and congratulations on being one of the 5 finalists. And I know you didn't get the numbers you wanted right now in the votes, but the good part is you got a great attitude, and I got to believe you're going to be climbing up in those standings in the next 2 segments. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time on this Father's Day weekend.
Well, you're very welcome.